All right, so for this deep dive, you sent over a script for Miracle on 34th Street.
Uh-huh.
And this is interesting because we've never actually done a deep dive about a movie before.
Right.
So let's fire up the old time machine
Okay.
and head back to 1947.
Yeah, right?
What was life like back then? I know World War II was over and things were starting to look up, but where did people find hope and magic in those days?
Well, department stores were really at the center of American life in 1947.
Okay,
I'm talking about places like Macy's and Gimbel's. They were more than just stores.
right.
They were these grand, almost theatrical spaces where people went to experience the latest trends,
Yeah,
to dream a little.
I see.
Imagine setting a Christmas movie against that backdrop, especially with all that retail rivalry going on.
Yeah, you're totally right. This is the perfect setting. And speaking of setting the stage, wasn't Miracle on 34th Street released in May?
It was.
That's kind of a head scratcher for a Christmas movie.
It seems strange now, but releasing it in May might have actually helped the film.
Hmm.
Think about it. Back then, if you released a Christmas movie in December, it was competing with tons of other holiday films.
Right.
Coming out in May meant it could stand out, capture people's attention, and maybe even build anticipation for the holidays.
That's a great point.
Hmm.
Now on to the star of the show, Kris Kringle, this charming old gent who walks right into Macy's and declares himself the one true Santa Claus.
Right.
What is it about his character, specifically Edmund Gwynn's performance, that makes it so iconic, even decades later?
Hmm.
I'm thinking about all the other Santas we've seen in movies, but there's just something about him that's special.
Gwen's performance is incredible.
Yeah.
It's warm, genuine, and feels very real.
Yeah,
He wasn't trying to be a jolly, over-the-top Santa.
right.
It was a much more subtle approach, and it really worked.
Yeah.
You actually believe this guy could be Santa.
He makes you want to believe, that's for sure.
Mhm.
And it earned him an Oscar. Now, here's something I found interesting about the film.
Okay.
It's a Christmas movie, but it also has this legal drama woven into it.
Yeah.
You don't often see Santa Claus on trial.
Uh-huh. Right.
What do you think those courtroom scenes bring to the story?
Those scenes are brilliant, not just for the unexpected humor of Santa being cross-examined,
Yeah.
but they also add a layer of tension and suspense.
I see.
Remember, this is a time when psychology and psychiatry were becoming more popular.
Ah.
So the idea of questioning someone's sanity, especially someone claiming to be Santa, was probably on a lot of people's minds back then.
You're right. It gives the whole story another dimension. And it's not just Santa on trial. It's almost like the idea of belief itself is being put to the test.
Yeah.
Which brings us to Doris Walker.
Right.
This single mom is raising her daughter Susan to be practical, to reject things like Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of a buzzkill, right? Especially for a Christmas movie.
She seems like a killjoy at first, but Doris represents a growing skepticism in society, a move away from fairy tales and toward a more logic-driven world. It's a bold choice for a Christmas movie, especially in 1947.
Yeah.
But think about it. In a world still reeling from a devastating war, maybe embracing logic and reason felt safer than clinging to fantasy.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It adds a level of complexity you don't always see in holiday films.
Mm-hmm.
And her journey, going from skeptic to believer is what makes it so relatable even today. So it's not just a simple story about believing in Santa. It's also about believing in something bigger than yourself, something good.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not just about believing in Santa. It's
Yeah.
about believing in the possibility of goodness, even when the world can seem pretty bleak.
And it does so with a lot of humor. It never gets preachy or too sentimental,
Right.
which is a delicate balance to strike, especially for a holiday film.
Yeah.
I think one scene that perfectly captures that
Yeah.
is when Kris Kringle directs the little Dutch girl to the couple who can speak Dutch.
Right.
What seems like a small gesture creates this beautiful moment of connection.
That scene always gets me. Here's this man who supposedly has mental health issues, yet he's the one bridging cultural divides and creating a moment of pure joy for complete strangers. It's a subtle but powerful message about the importance of empathy and understanding.
Exactly. And remember, this is 1947,
Right?
a time when America was trying to figure out its place
Mm-hmm.
in a rapidly changing world.
Yeah.
So showing this kind of cross-cultural understanding in a mainstream Christmas movie was pretty significant, don't you think?
Absolutely. It speaks to a growing awareness of diversity and the need for inclusivity,
Right.
which were starting to emerge in post-war America.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but those kinds of messages can be incredibly powerful, especially when they're woven into a heartwarming story.
It makes you wonder if the filmmakers were intentionally trying to push those ideas or if it was just a natural reflection of the changing times.
Right.
Either way, it adds a layer of depth to the film that we can still appreciate today.
Right. And speaking of depth, let's talk about the film's subtle critique of commercialism,
Okay,
especially during the holidays. I mean, it's set in a department store, for goodness sake.
that's a good point. You'd think a movie sponsored by Macy's would be all about the joys of shopping, but Miracle on 34th Street actually suggests there's more to Christmas than just buying presents.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on how the film manages to walk that line?
I think it's how they present Kris Kringle.
Okay.
He's not interested in pushing products. He genuinely cares about making children happy. Remember that scene where he tells the mother to buy her son a fire engine from another store because it's cheaper?
Yeah,
That goes against everything we've come to expect from a department store Santa.
that's right. He even tells Susan there's more to Christmas than getting presents, and honestly, that's a message we all need to hear sometimes, even today.
Especially today. The film highlights the idea that the true spirit of Christmas lies in human connection, generosity, and kindness, not just material possessions. It's a message that's as relevant now as it was in 1947, maybe even more so.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And speaking of relevance, one of the things that strikes me about Miracle on 34th Street is that it's not just a nostalgic Christmas film.
Yeah.
It feels incredibly timeless.
Yeah.
What do you think gives it that lasting appeal, that ability to connect with audiences across generations?
At its core, Miracle on 34th Street is a story about believing in the power of good,
Yeah.
even when things are tough.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds us that even in a world that can feel increasingly cynical and divided,
Right.
there's still room for hope, for compassion, for those little miracles that make life worth living.
It's about choosing to believe in something bigger than yourself,
Absolutely.
whether it's Santa Claus or the inherent goodness in people.
Right.
And that's a powerful message that resonates with audiences of all ages.
It's fascinating how a simple story about a man claiming to be Santa Claus can explore such profound themes.
I know, it's crazy.
The film touches on issues of faith, doubt, commercialism, and even mental health, all while maintaining a sense of warmth and humor that makes it so endearing.
It's like the film manages to capture the magic of Christmas without shying away from the complexities of life.
Right.
It acknowledges the doubts and anxieties we all face, but ultimately chooses to embrace hope and optimism.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes it so enduring.
Okay.
It offers a comforting escape from the harsh realities of the world,
Right.
while reminding us that even in the darkest of times, there's always room for a little bit of magic.
It's a reminder that sometimes all it takes is a little bit of belief to create something truly extraordinary.
Mm.
That even the smallest acts of kindness can ripple outwards and create positive change.
And those ripples can last a lifetime, impacting not just individuals, but entire communities. It's like that courtroom scene where people from all walks of life rally around Kris Kringle,
Oh, yeah.
showing their support and affirming their belief in the spirit of Christmas. It's a powerful moment that speaks to the collective power of faith and how it can unite people from all backgrounds.
And it reminds us that sometimes believing in something bigger than ourselves can lead to the most unexpected and wonderful outcomes.
Precisely. It's about having faith in the inherent goodness of humanity and recognizing that even in a world that can often feel cynical and divided, there's always a glimmer of hope, a spark of magic waiting to be ignited. You know, it's remarkable how Miracle on 34th Street manages to be both a product of its time and a timeless classic.
I see what you mean. On one hand, it perfectly captures that post-war American optimism, the importance of department stores, even the fashion and social norms of the late 1940s.
It's like a time capsule giving us a glimpse into that specific moment in history. But on the other hand, it's about so much more than just a particular era.
Right, the themes of belief, kindness, and generosity, those are things that resonate just as strongly today as they did back then, no matter what year it is. People need those things.
It's the heart of the story, those universal values that connect with audiences generation after generation.
I think that's why the film continues to charm and inspire.
Yeah.
It provides this comforting escape from whatever's going on in the world,
Mm.
reminding us that believing in something good can make a real difference.
It's a powerful reminder, and it's presented in such a heartwarming and genuine way. There's no preaching. It just lets the story unfold naturally.
And that's the power of great storytelling.
Mm.
It can transport you to different times and places, introduce you to unforgettable characters, and leave you with a sense of wonder long after the story is over.
Speaking of the story, remember how Macy's was initially hesitant to cooperate with the film?
Oh, yeah, they were worried about how they would be portrayed.
It is, but they eventually came around, and now the film is practically a part of their brand identity. It's hard to imagine Miracle on 34th Street without Macy's.
It's funny how things work out sometimes.
Hmm.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the historical context, those amazing characters, the enduring themes, and how the film continues to impact us even today.
We've really gone deep on this one.
But I think it's time to bring this deep dive to a close.
Okay.
So here's the big question. Why does Miracle on 34th Street hold such a special place in our hearts, even after all these years?
That's a great question, and I think the answer lies in its ability to remind us that magic is still possible, even in a world that often seems driven by logic and reason.
It encourages us to believe in something bigger than ourselves, whether it's Santa Claus or the inherent goodness of humanity. It's a reminder that those beliefs can bring joy and hope into our lives.
And those acts of kindness and belief, even if they seem small, can have a ripple effect, creating a more compassionate and connected world.
Beautifully put. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought to ponder. In a world that can feel increasingly complex and uncertain, is there still room for a little bit of magic and belief? What do you think?